world. This is Sara Becker, voice and text coach extraordinaire for American Players Theater.
And this is Alys, and we met each other for the first time last summer working on the Scottish play.
I had the privilege of doing, oh my gosh, and I'm blanking on The Tempest, Shakespeare's The Tempest at Notre Dame Shakes my first year out of grad school. And I got to play the Ariel's quality. I was her singing voice. And a bunch of different characters, or a bunch of different actors were cast as her qualities. But I got to hear some of the language that Prospero, as well as Miranda. Miranda was great too. I think I just dug that his name was Prospero, and so I kept on thinking of the word prosper and prosperous, and to push forth and to make it, and to survive this storm. So I really want to just figure it out. I hope it's okay that I'm looking at my text this way.
That's fine.
Well as you. I'll get you kind of centered here. Yeah.
Were you on stage for this speech?
Where were we? There was a main, so Ariel was this wonderful, oh my gosh, she could do aerobics. She like sat on a, what are those, trapeze. She was a trapezist. Yeah, she did the entire show. She played an instrument on top of this trapeze, and then the rest of her qualities got to kind of loom on the bottom and did a bunch of like fan work. With fans and air, and really cool. It was just magic. I mean, all of Shakespeare's shows are magic, but it was just, to experience it was just so epic. So I think actually at this point I was hiding inside the ship watching Prospero. If I'm remembering the way it felt, it was like I got to peer out of this hole in the ship, and he was like casting this wonderful spell. Circumstantially though, I don't remember. I think it was to free Ariel. Also, you helped with Cymbeline, and something we talked about in that process was, you know, that play is kind of about dawning a different identity and thus finding your own.
Yeah.
And we talked about how a lot of times when Shakespeare has a character that he wants in the story, in the circumstances, to dawn as a different sex, you know, he tells a lot of women to dress up as a prince and run around. And then, you know, in that rehearsal process, we were talking about how sometimes you can find yourself by donning something different than you are because it frees you up.
Yeah.
And I mean, even when we did that read in Cymbeline, I was like, I get that. I totally get it. You know, sometimes you have to walk into a room, like for myself, I'll have to walk into my room and feel like a man, like just, you know, don a man's character or traits and see where it takes you. And so when you suggested Hamlet, I was like, oh, I just remember his name. His name was the number one. I was like, Prospero, to prosper, to flourish, to keep going despite all the odds. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of myself in that, like in actual life, where I've been like, okay, you have to just push. You have to just push despite the odds, despite the rubble, just to keep going. And I know that that's what this guy's about. So.
And we'll just have a pass where we just read it and let it work on us, and then we'll talk about what's in it for us.
Perfect. I love it. All right. This is literally my first read of this speech.
All right.
Okay.
I'm glad to be here for it.
I am too. I am too, girl.
So take your time and breathe.
Ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes and groves, and ye that on the sands with printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune and do fly him when he comes back. You demi-puppets that by moonshine do the green sour ringlets make, whereof the yew not bites, and you whose pastime is to make midnight mushrooms that rejoice to hear the solemn curfew, by whose aid, weak masters though ye be, I have bedimmed the noontide sun, called forth the mutinous winds, and twixt the green sea and the azured vault set roaring war. That's cool. To the dread rattling thunder have I given fire, and rifted Jove's stout oak with his own bolt. The strong-based promontory have I made shake, and by the spurs plucked up the pine and cedar. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, opened, and let them forth by my so potent art. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for. I'll break my staff,
Ugh.
bury certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper did ever plummet sound. I'll drown my book. This is kind of a big, like, I mean, maybe not, but like the archetypes I'm thinking of are like a big martyrdom. Like this is like I am setting down my load.
Yeah.
I'm
And if you're going to set it down, how amazing to say, let me tell you how great this load is
yeah,
to give up.
yeah,
It
yeah,
adds value to the fact that that's the thing you're going to lay down.
yeah. That's what it feels like.
So you gather these different people together,
Mm-hmm.
by whose aid, so those are the folks that help you, right?
Right. Yes.
By whose
Ah,
aid, weak masters though you are, though you're not as great as me,
right.
but you helped me out to do this.
Mm, mm,
So,
mm,
and your other thing is your book.
and deeper than I ever did plummet sound. Ooh, I love that. And deeper, oh my gosh, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. So is that like what I get from that is I've plummeted sound before. I've dug up sound, or excuse me, buried sound. I don't even know. Plummeted means to go under, right?
Well, to sound something is to find the bottom of it.
I'll drown my book, meaning it's going to the inside of the earth, like just deep as deep can go.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I'm not going to file it away, and maybe I'll be tempted to look at it later.
sure. It's like this is over. It's over. This is the last spell, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Last fall. Awesome.
There's something about when I've required some heavenly music, which I do require some heavenly music now, to get my goals done upon their sense that this spell is for. I'm going to need you all. So there's something about you call them here, you tell them what magic you've done, and you say, I'm giving up that magic, and when I need some music, I'm going to break my staff and bury my book.
With this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, some heavenly music, which how do I?
Now I do, maybe.
Now I do.
Which now I do.
Yeah.
So we're gonna lie that V out of there.
Yeah. To work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff. Bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book.
Yeah, that's a lot of hyperbole, a lot of extreme here.
Yeah.
Very, very deep, very big magic.
Yeah. And I mean, it's weird because I'm reading this and I'll read it and not know anything. I mean, I'll know how it feels. Like, I'll know how it feels when I hear it. And I'll be like, whoa, this is a big deal. Whatever he's saying is a big deal. But then in the minutia of it, it's so like, I mean, it is complex. It's so sad. It's so sad. Like, it's actually very like heartbreaking how, he could just be like, all right, I'm done. All right, I'm finished. But I feel like it's not necessarily, maybe it's just like LeBron's last game, I guess.
The time is over for that.
Right. Like it's never going to happen again.
But that's a real sign of a maturity, isn't it?
It's like, that's not the first time, like, it's not the first time I'm calling on the elves and the mushrooms and
by whose aid, with whose help, I've done these things.
Yes. And then this is the best part. It's like, yes, you helped me, but you're not even, what does he say?
You're not as great as me.
Yeah, you weak masters. You're not as good as I am. However, I do need you.
Yeah.
Just remember who's the greatest of all time, though. Just remember.
Totally.
If we look at the first, I know we kind of started kind of at bedimmed, but, and it also kind of clues you into like how much Prospero knows about these really tiny little nuanced creatures. like that's, or maybe
spend some time on this island.
Or just like how in touch he is with these gods. too. That's every Shakespeare character, though. They all know all the gods by name. Um, to me, okay, which by moonshine. So, okay. Oh, that's kind of extraterrestrial. Okay. The demi puppets, like demigods almost, or like half. That
Yeah,
means
what's the difference between an elf and a demi puppet? Demi puppet feels bigger, but I don't know if
demi
that's
puppet feels like an alien to me. That creeps me out.
things I hold.
By moonshine. So in the dark, you go out and make these circles where in the morning the you doesn't bite, and
Uh-huh.
you wake their sleepers, open, and my so potent art.
Uh-huh. And here comes the big butt shift.
But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. Oh,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
still.
so deeper than the deepest place we know of. Yeah.
Mm.
So that which even now I do, I think that might be a parenthetical.
Ah, okay. So even like maybe something to himself or myself.
Yeah, but let's see what the spine of that thought is without the parenthetical, and
Okay,
then we can talk about what the internal quality of that parenthetical is. So
gotcha.
if you airlifted that out, what's the spine of that? And when I have required some heavenly music to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, then I'm going to break my. So there's a when then construction there. So feel what it feels like to track that long thing, and then we'll stick the parenthetical back in.
Back in. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll
Then,
break. Yeah. I see what you mean. Yes. To work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff. Bury
nice.
certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a parenthetical, I think.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it. Do you want to put the parenthetical back in?
for sure. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury it in certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. It could
Great.
actually be put up, I think.
Let's try that. I think that that would make it easier for us to know
Yeah,
that you're back on the track.
for sure, for sure. Um, but this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, nope.
Or then.
Yep. Yes. Oh, I
So
love that.
think the then, even though Shakespeare doesn't give it to you,
Exactly.
because the time words there are great.
And I really do think, which even now I do, I think that's all point of view. I just don't know what my point of view is, which like,
It's something about your relationship to music, isn't it?
yeah. So like, because I'm saying I'm done with this, but this rough magic that I'm giving up, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, like for me, I think, and I'd love your input on this.
Yeah.
When I have required some heavenly music, to me sounds like when I am ready to go, when I am ready to like hear the bells of my end, which even now I do, is me
Now
saying
I'm
like,
ready.
yeah, like even now, which right now I'm doing. It's almost like a second of not weakness, but vulnerability, I guess. Like, like I almost as if I hear myself saying that is kind of what. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff.
I
Bury it
love
in
it.
certain fathom. Yeah. That's
You
hot.
went from but this rough magic. And you can be messy as you want.
I was about to say, okay, I'll try.
I love it.
Thank you for the permission. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury it in certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book.
Yeah, I think you did it really nicely on sound. I could tell that you got to the verse line ending. But see if as an experiment now, those places where there's enjambment, you do a little bit of wait for it, wait for it.
Okay, gotcha. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury it in certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book.
There's some things that I think that gave you.
Well, just kind of, I hear what you're saying about the feeling of it, I guess, you know, like the feeling of how it's actually not so, it's actually not as direct.
And you know, the technique that we learn is in Shakespeare when we look for the technique is to make our acting look better.
Well, cool. Should I give it another go, I guess? Let me see if there's anything in this first half. I feel like we spent a lot of time on the second half, so I want to look at
I think that's the most complicated part.
And it's the turn. I mean, he's got such a big, I mean, it's so clear where the transition is.
Great. Do you want to call out those chunks for me? Like, where are the chunks for you?
So the chunks, okay, so I guess, first of all, I'm calling the homies. So ye elves of hills, the demi puppets, and then we have you whose pastime is to make midnight mushrooms. So all of my little nymphs in forest help, by whose aid weak masters though ye be. That's one shot. So weak masters though ye be, I think is the beginning of like, yo, squat up, all of you masters who are awesome, but not as awesome as I.
You've helped me.
Helped me do the following. I have shut off the sky. I've called up the winds. I've created this storm. I even told Jove to split that tree with his own.
Let me read you my resume.
Exactly. I even told Jove to split his stout oak with his own bolt. The strong base. Oh, here, this is hard.
Promontory.
Promontory.
Nope, first syllable.
Promontory.
There it is.
Promontory. That's hard. Promontory.
Could you think prominent? Because it's the prominent part of the land where the land meets water.
Yes, yes, Becker, yes. Promontory, I have made shake, and by spurs plucked. So basically, okay, just to get back to weak masters yo ye be as the end of that first chunk, all of my action bedimmed, called forth, set roaring, given fire, rifted, the strong base promontory, fudge.
It's okay.
Promontory. Promontory, I have made shake, and by these spurs plucked up the pine and cedar. And then I think the third, I mean, I don't know, this could be floating. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, oped, and let them forth by my so potent art. That's kind of the end of his first thought. I think.
Full resume.
Yes, right. Creds on creds on creds. Credibility. Here's my CV. Here's my cover letter. And then, but this rough magic is the final. Actually, hold on. But this rough magic I hear abjure, and when I have received some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work my end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff. I think I'll break my staff is the beginning of that final goodbye. I'll drown my, this is no more magic.
Let's look up abjure.
Yeah.
That's your big action that you're going to do.
Yes.
Even though I've done all that, I've decided to abjure.
Got it.
I know abjure the livery of a nun or something like that is a line at Romeo and Juliet, I think. Abjure the livery of men. Give up. It's like
Give
a
up.
word.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But let's be more specific. Hij. Abjure, to renounce, to recant.
Ooh. Yikes. I hear renounce. I hear put down. I hear give up. I hear abjure.
Uh-huh.
And give. And when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do. Oh, I love that. Even now, like even as I tell you now, I'm doing this. To work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for. I'll break my staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book.
Yeah, and I'd use a little wait for it after that sound. Because then you go monosyllabic. So lay off the gas on those monosyllables, and you'll really feel like you've completed that piece.
Yeah. Are you saying like the mono, repeat that back to me differently? I'll like basically lay off, like pump it up at the end, or?
So deeper than did ever plummet sound, wait for it, because you've got enjambment there.
Yeah.
And after the enjambment, you go into monosyllables.
I'll drown my book.
Uh-huh. And what I love about that K at the end, it's like,
boom. Yeah. For sure.
It's not a continuance. It completes and it's done.
Nice. Dope. What a cool piece.
You know what's cool about it too? What I love is when you get to those parts that you love, I can experience them in a way that I've never experienced them before, and I feel so connected to them through your speaking of them.
Yeah. And that's another thing I find. I know that there's rules, like there's just rules that come with the learning of this. If you study it, like in school, when they teach you scansion and they teach you iambic pentameter and knowing all of that. And like, I think that's the labor part is like the part that I loathe so much because I'm such an empath actor. Like, I'm like, I just want to feel it now. You know, I don't like these rules, but they are definitely meant to be broken. So I think like when I do find something I love to say, like, but this rough magic, like like that's tasty. Like when it gets tasty, you know, when the words get tasty, I'm like, okay, I can rock with this. But it may not follow the rules. So sometimes like
all of it's following the rules now.
Right. True.
And I feel like all those rules are like the troubleshooting section of the acting book. You're like, oh my God. Why? Oh, it's because that thing that my playwright gave me that's supposed to help me, I didn't know to do that.
For sure. I think I early on just got caught up in like, okay, it has to sound like it has to sound as if it goes with the rhythm and and I don't know. I just think I call on my poet because I'm like, what do I love to say? Like spurs plucked up is even hot because of the P's that he's using in a row. Like, ooh, and then he goes pine and cedar. Like, I think that once I find what tastes good, I feel so much better about not loving the rules so much. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to love the rules to love Shakespeare.
Yeah. And a lot of times when it's going well, your instincts and the rules are aligning.
Ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes and groves, and ye that on the sands with printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune and do fly him when he comes back. You demi-puppets that by moonshine do the green sour ringlets make, whereof the ewe not bites, and you whose pastime is to make midnight mushrooms that rejoice to hear the solemn curfew, by whose aid, weak masters though ye be, I have bedimmed the noontide sun, called forth the mutinous winds, and twixt the green sea and the azured vault set roaring war to the dread rattling thunder have I given fire, and Jove's stout oak with his own bolt, that strong base promontory have I made shake, and by the spurs plucked up the pine and cedar. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, oped, and let them forth by my so potent art. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury it in certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book.
You know, if we were in a really big space,
Oh
it would
man.
be fun for us to act out all the elves
And see them making their
and watch you do the things that you did with your magic.
And like the staff I just got from this read, like he's using his like the staff is conjuring all these things to help him do all these things, like come here my little forest elves and imps, and then help me make this war, only to pluck up the pine and see, only to make more havoc, and then to say it's over. That is really, and that the breaking of that staff is like, it's so beautiful. Like I just saw it as I was reading it. I was like, oh shoot, the reason I can do all this is in my magic. And I'm saying, and so this is kind of like a farewell to my little helpers and a farewell to the, you know, look at it's so masturbatory in a way actually, where it's like, I know how awesome I am, but I'm gonna hang it up because I got a greater love. That's cool.
Nice. So do you think that you'll use this piece for something, or you have
I
more
would.
to do with it sometime?
I would totally, I would love to play this role one day. Oh my gosh, a female Prospero would be so cool. I would love that. But I also,
piece if you sneak into a theater late at night.
and just, yeah, oh my gosh, I should go up the hill and just like conjure.
Oh, do it.
It's a conjuring too, yeah. The more like, every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, there's the verbs are conjuring, calling, you know, literally like raising things from the dead. Like that's a godlike power that I'm saying goodbye to. So I know that, like, of course over Zoom it's like, yes, there's, but to physically be in this, I mean, I think it was, I'm spacing on what we did. I mean, I'm not, I remember it was a very open and powerful moment.
Yeah.
But just in seeing it on the page, it's like, in the movie in my head, like I'm cracking the world wide open just to bury my staff there and put it back.
That's why my suspicion to have you physicalize all those actions will give you a body memory of the distinctions between those.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Completely.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah, this is great. This is really beneficial. I'll totally keep this. Yeah. This is literally the first time, like I didn't read it before. I was like, all right, ye elves, cool. We'll just do this. It's beautiful too. It's really beautiful. It's
great.
Lovely. It's lovely.
Hey, anytime you want to work a piece, you let me know, okay, friend?
I would love to do that, since I'm not fit. Like I've asked a few people, like, could you just watch me do a monologue? And it's like, of course they're gonna say yes, but like, it's like I'm missing like my fix of performing in front of people.
Well, this stage of the work is one of my favorite stages of the work. So thank you for letting me be with you from the beginning.
Well, thank you.
Good night, Alys.
I love you. I'll see you later. I appreciate it.
Bye.